When I opened the door and saw that box of incredibly expensive artisanal chocolates on my 60th birthday, I had no idea who had sent them. There was no note, nothing. Since I do not care much for sweets, I gave them all to my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren, happy to share. Until the next morning, when my son called me asking, "Mom, did you like the chocolates I sent you?" I answered innocently, "Oh, was that you? I gave them to your wife and the kids." The scream on the other end of the line froze me. "You did what?" In that instant, I realized something was terribly wrong. But before we continue, check if you are already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. My name is Susan. I am 60 years old, and I never imagined I would celebrate that milestone the way it happened. I am a retired school teacher, a widow for 8 years, and the mother of an only child named Ryan. I raised this boy alone after my husband, Robert, passed away from cancer. Those were hard years, working double shifts to give Ryan a decent education, nice clothes, everything a mother can offer. Ryan was always my pride and joy. He graduated with an engineering degree, landed an excellent job at a multinational corporation, and married Emily, a sweet and dedicated girl. They gave me 2 beautiful grandchildren, Liam, who is 8, and Chloe, who is 5. My life revolved around those kids. I was the hands-on grandma, the one who picked them up from school when the parents could not, the one who baked her famous apple pie on weekends, the one who kept toys at my house for when they came to visit. I live in a simple house in a quiet suburb of New Jersey, in the same neighborhood for 30 years. Ryan lives in New York City with his family, about an hour and a half away. In the last 2 years, I noticed the visits became rarer. He always had an excuse. Work piling up, the kids had soccer practice or ballet, Emily was tired. I understood, or at least I tried to understand. Modern life is fast-paced, everyone is busy, but deep down, it hurt. It hurt to see my grandkids growing up and missing those important moments. It hurt to call Ryan and feel like he was in a rush to hang up. It hurt when Emily replied to my texts with short, one-word answers. Something had changed, but I could not identify what. My 60th birthday fell on a Friday. Ryan had called me the week before, saying he would not be able to come visit me that weekend because they had commitments with Emily's family. I promised myself I would not get upset, but I did. 60 years is a milestone. It is not just any birthday, but I pretended everything was fine. I said it was no problem, that we would see each other another time. I woke up that day with a heavy heart. I made a special breakfast just for myself, trying to celebrate in some way. Some friends had called me early to wish me a happy birthday, which warmed my heart. Around 10 in the morning, the doorbell rang. It was a delivery driver with an elegant package. A large box, wrapped in gold paper with a luxurious red ribbon. There was no card, no identification of who sent it. The driver just handed it to me and left. I was intrigued. Who could have sent me such a beautiful gift? I opened the box carefully, and what I saw left me breathless. Artisanal chocolates, the kind that cost a fortune. Each bonbon was a small work of art. There were truffles covered in edible gold, chocolates filled with exotic fruits, some with elaborate shapes of flowers and hearts. The box must have cost at least $200, maybe more. I looked for a card, some indication of who had sent it, but found nothing. I immediately thought of Ryan. Maybe he wanted to surprise me, to make up for the fact that he could not come to visit. My heart filled with gratitude. I took a picture of the box and texted it to him with the message, "What a beautiful gift. Thanks, son." I waited for his reply, but it did not come. I saw that he read the message, but he did not type back. I found it strange, but I figured he must be busy at work. I decided not to push it. I put the chocolates in the refrigerator, thinking about savoring a few that evening after dinner. But then I had an idea. Why not take the chocolates to Emily and the kids? They lived in the city. I could surprise them, show up there Saturday morning with the chocolates, and spend the day with my grandkids. It would be a way to transform my lonely birthday into something special, sharing that treat with the people I loved most. I decided not to tell them I was coming. It would be a surprise. Saturday morning, I woke up early, took the carefully packed box of chocolates, and drove into the city. The traffic on the turnpike was light. I got there around 9:30. I rang the buzzer of their apartment with a smile on my face, excited to see the look of joy on my grandkids' faces. Emily opened the door. Her expression was not one of joy. It was an uncomfortable surprise. "Susan? What are you doing here?" The way she spoke, without even a hello or good morning, caught me off guard. "I came to surprise you all. I brought some delicious chocolates." I showed her the box, trying to maintain my enthusiasm despite the cold reception. She hesitated for a few seconds before opening the door completely to let me in. "Ryan is not here. He went out early to take care of some things." Her voice sounded strange, tense. The kids came running when they saw me. "Grandma!" Liam and Chloe hugged me with that contagious energy that only children have. At least they were still happy to see me. I gave the box of chocolates to Emily and explained that they were a gift for my birthday, but I wanted to share them with the family. Emily took the box carefully, looking at the chocolates with an expression I could not decipher. "Susan, are you sure? These chocolates look very expensive." There was something in her voice, a worry that did not make sense. "Of course. I want you guys to enjoy them. The kids will love them." I smiled, trying to push away the strange feeling that was growing inside me. We chatted for about an hour, or rather, I tried to make conversation while Emily gave short answers and checked her phone every 2 minutes. The kids showed me drawings they had made at school, told me about a trip they took to Central Park. I drank in every word, hungry for that connection that was becoming increasingly rare. Emily did not offer the chocolates at that moment. She said she would save them for after lunch. I found it odd, but I did not say anything. Around 11 o'clock, I noticed she was getting anxious, looking at the clock. I understood the silent message. She wanted me to leave. I said goodbye to the kids with a heavy heart and drove back home. During the entire drive back, I could not stop thinking about the cold reception, about Emily's strange behavior. Had I done something wrong? Was I being too intrusive? I got home in the early afternoon, tired and emotionally drained. I took a shower and decided to take a nap. I needed to rest, not just my body, but also my heart, hurt by the feeling of rejection. I woke up late in the afternoon, made some tea, and sat watching TV without paying much attention. My mind constantly went back to the morning visit. Why had Emily acted so weird? Why hadn't Ryan replied to my text about the chocolates? Night fell, and I ate dinner alone, as always. I went to sleep early, tired of that day which should have been special but ended up being just another lonely day. I did not imagine that the next morning my life would be turned upside down. The phone rang at 7 in the morning. It was Sunday. Nobody called me that early. I answered groggily, still trying to wake up completely. It was Ryan, and his voice sounded strange, forcedly casual. "Good morning, Mom. Did you like the chocolates I sent you?" The question caught me off guard. "Was that you?" I sat up in bed, fully awake now. There was no card. I did not know who had sent them. What a beautiful gift, son. But what, Mom?" His voice tensed up. "Well, I gave them to Emily and the kids yesterday. I went to surprise them at the house. I thought it would be nice to share with them since you could not come see me on my birthday." I said this naturally, without realizing what was about to happen. The silence on the other end was terrifying. It lasted a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Then Ryan exploded. "You did what? Mom, you gave the chocolates to Emily and the kids?" My heart raced. There was panic in his voice. Real, desperate panic. "Ryan, what is going on? They are just chocolates. Why are you getting like this? Did they eat them? Mom, answer me now. Did they eat the chocolates already?" Ryan's voice was altered in a way I had never heard before. It was not anger. It was absolute desperation. My mind raced, trying to understand. "I do not know, son. Emily put them in the fridge. She said they would eat them after lunch today." "But what is happening? You are scaring me." I heard heavy breathing on the other end. Ryan seemed to be going into a panic attack. "Mom, give me Emily's number right now." "Now!" He shouted the last word in a way that made me tremble. "But I do not know it by heart. It is in my cell phone," I started to say, but he interrupted me. "Then hang up and call her right now. Tell her not to eat the chocolates. Tell her they are spoiled. Make up anything, just do not let them eat them. He was almost hysterical. Ryan, explain to me what is. He hung up on me. I stood there with the phone in my hand, completely lost. My fingers were shaking when I grabbed my cell phone and searched for Emily's number. I called 3 times in a row, but she did not pick up. It was early Sunday morning. She was probably still sleeping. I tried sending a text. Emily, do not eat the chocolates I brought. Please, it is urgent. But the message stayed as just delivered, not read. She either did not have internet or her phone was on silent. I called Ryan back, but now he was the one not answering. My mind was spiraling into panic. What was happening? Why would the chocolates be dangerous? They were beautiful, well packaged, from an expensive brand. What could be wrong? I waited 15 agonizing minutes until Emily finally called me back. Susan? I saw your messages. What happened? Her voice sounded sleepy. The chocolates? Did you guys eat them? I asked desperately. No, they are still in the fridge. The kids wanted to eat them last night, but I told them only after lunch today. Why? What is wrong with them? Now she was alert, worried. I felt a momentary relief flood my body. Thank God. Emily! Ryan called me in a panic, telling me not to let you guys eat the chocolates. He said they are spoiled or something. Do not let anyone touch them. Spoiled? Susan. They look perfectly fine, and they are from a super expensive brand. I saw that when you brought them yesterday. Emily was confused, and so was I. I know, but there is something very wrong with this. Ryan was desperate. Throw them away, please. Or better yet, keep them untouched until he explains what is going on. A few minutes later, Ryan called me back. His voice was a little calmer, but still tense. Mom, did Emily answer? Yes, they did not eat them. The chocolates are still in the refrigerator. Ryan, for the love of God, explain to me what is happening. My voice came out louder than I intended, mixing fear with frustration. He took a deep breath on the other end of the line. Mom, I did not send those chocolates. His words took a few seconds to make sense in my brain. What do you mean you did not send them? You just asked me if I liked them. I asked because I saw the picture you sent yesterday. When I saw that box, I got confused. Because I had not sent anything. I thought maybe it was from one of your friends, but when you did not reply anymore, I got worried, and I could not sleep all night thinking about it. He paused between sentences, as if measuring every word. But then, who sent them? My voice came out weak, fear starting to really set in. I do not know, Mom, but I have a terrible feeling. I am heading there right now to get those chocolates and take them to be analyzed. Do not let anyone touch them. Analyzed? Ryan, do you think there is something wrong with the chocolates? Like, poisoned? The word came out of my mouth before I completely processed the idea. More silence. I do not know, Mom, but I prefer to be sure. Stay away from them. I am going to call Emily now and tell her the same thing. He hung up, and I stood in the middle of my living room, trying to process what was happening. Someone had sent me a box of extremely expensive chocolates anonymously, on my 60th birthday. And now my son was in a panic, believing they might be contaminated. Who would do something like that? Who would want to hurt me? I am a retired teacher. I live a quiet life. I have no enemies. The idea was absurd, but the desperation in Ryan's voice was too real to ignore. I sat on the couch and started to shake. If those chocolates really were poisoned, I had given them to my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren. If they had eaten them, no, I could not even think about it. The mere possibility made me nauseous. Ryan arrived at my house 2 hours later. He had left New York City and driven straight to my house. When he opened the door, I saw that his face was pale, with deep circles under his eyes. Emily was with him, and the kids had stayed with her mother. Where is the box? That was the first thing he asked, without even saying hello. Did you bring it from your place? I asked Emily. She nodded. It is here. She held up a plastic bag where the box of chocolates was, carefully wrapped. Ryan took the bag as if he were holding a bomb. I am taking this to a private lab in the city. A friend of mine works there and said he can run a quick analysis. Ryan, you are scaring me. Explain to me exactly what you think is happening. I held his arm, forcing him to look me in the eyes. He sighed heavily. Mom, do you remember mentioning anything about money recently? About inheritance, investments, Anything like that? The question caught me off guard. Not that I recall. Why? Emily interrupted. Susan. Ryan thinks someone might be trying to hurt you too. She could not finish the sentence. To rob me? I finished, incredulous. But I do not have that much money. I have this house paid off and modest savings. I am not rich. How much do you have in savings? Ryan asked directly. I do not know exactly. Maybe $100,000. Why? Ryan and Emily exchanged a look. Mom, that is not a small amount of money. And with the house, you have considerable assets. He paused. Who is your heir? You are, obviously. You are my only son. I answered, but then something clicked in my mind. Ryan, you are not thinking that. No, Mom, of course not. He interrupted me quickly. But someone might know about your financial situation, someone who would benefit from your death. The world seemed to spin around me. Someone wanted to kill me. That was what my son was insinuating. Someone had planned this, bought expensive chocolates, poisoned them, and sent them on my birthday. And I, innocently, had given them to my daughter-in-law and my grandkids, the children. My voice failed. If they had eaten them. Emily started to cry. Do not think about that, Susan. They did not eat them. Everything is fine, but everything was not fine. Nothing was fine. I sat on the couch because my legs would not hold me up anymore. Ryan knelt in front of me. Mom, I promise you we are going to find out who did this. But first I need to confirm if there really is something wrong with the chocolates. It could be my paranoia. It could be that they are perfectly normal. But you do not think they are, do you? I looked into his eyes and saw the truth. No, Mom, I do not think so. He left with Emily right after, taking the box of chocolates. He promised to call me as soon as he had the results. I was left alone in my house, with a heavy silence and even heavier thoughts. I spent the rest of Sunday in a state of shock. I could not do anything but sit staring at the walls, my mind going in circles. Who would do this to me? I tried to make a mental list of everyone I knew, looking for someone who might have a motive. My neighbors? Impossible. Mrs. Henderson next door is a 75-year-old lady who can barely leave the house. The couple on the other side are busy professionals who barely wave at me. There was no animosity there, just polite indifference. My former co-workers? That did not make sense either. I retired 2 years ago on good terms with everyone. There were no disputes, fights, or resentments that I knew of. Family? I do not have much. My parents have already passed. I am an only child. Robert, my late husband, had a brother who lives in Texas and whom I have not been in contact with for years. Ryan is my only son. There were no close cousins, aunts, or other relatives who could be interested in my money. So who? Night came, and I had not eaten anything all day. I did not feel hungry, just a hollow feeling in my stomach that was not physical. I tried to sleep, but it was impossible. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, imagining increasingly terrifying scenarios. What if the chocolates really were poisoned? What if I had eaten them, as was the intention of whoever sent them? I would have died alone in this house, and they probably would have thought it was natural causes. A heart attack, maybe. My body would have been found days later, when Ryan finally decided to visit me, or when the neighbors noticed the smell. The image was so horrible, it made me get out of bed. I went to the kitchen, made some chamomile tea, and sat at the table. I looked at my house with different eyes. This house, which was my refuge, my safe place, suddenly seemed vulnerable. Anyone could send something through the mail. Any delivery driver could bring death wrapped in pretty paper. My cell phone rang in the middle of the night, startling me. It was Ryan. Mom, I got a preliminary result. Are you sitting down? My heart skyrocketed. I am. Tell me. There is arsenic in the chocolates, a lethal amount. His voice was controlled, but I could feel the tension behind every word. My world collapsed. My most absurd suspicions had been confirmed. Someone really had tried to kill me. Arsenic! I repeated the strange word in my mouth. Mom, I am calling the police right now. This is attempted murder. You cannot stay there alone. Ryan was in protective mode, already planning the next steps. The police? My mind was processing slowly. But how are they going to find out who did this? They will investigate. They will trace who bought the arsenic. Where did the chocolates come from? Who made the delivery? There are ways to find out, Mom. He made it sound simple, but I knew it would not be. I do not want to stay here alone, I admitted, my voice coming out small and scared. I know. I am coming to get you early tomorrow morning. You are going to stay at my place until we sort this out. Pack a bag with clothes for a few days. After hanging up with Ryan, reality finally hit me with full force. Someone had put poison in expensive chocolates, packaged everything beautifully, and sent it to me as a birthday gift. That person expected me to eat them, expected me to die. And it almost worked. If not for my impulsive decision to share with Emily and the kids, I would have eaten those chocolates, probably Friday night, after dinner, while watching television. I would have savored every single one, happy with what I thought was a generous gift from someone who cared about me. And then, how long would it take? Does arsenic act fast? Would I have felt pain? Would I have realized I was being poisoned, or would I think it was a sudden heart attack? Those questions tormented me. I spent the night awake. Every little noise made me jump. The wind hitting the window sounded like someone trying to get in. The normal creaking of the house sounded like stealthy footsteps. I was paranoid, but I had plenty of reasons to be. Ryan arrived at 7 in the morning with Emily. They had dropped the kids off at school and came straight to get me. I was already ready, with a small suitcase packed. I looked at my house before leaving, wondering when I would feel safe there again. During the drive to the city, Ryan explained that the police would come to interview me that same day. They needed all the information. When did I receive the chocolates? Did I see the delivery driver? Was there any clue as to who might have sent them? Mom, you have to think hard. Anyone you fought with recently? Any argument at the supermarket? On the street? Anything? Ryan was driving too fast, his hands tense on the steering wheel. No, son. I live a very quiet life. I do not fight with anyone. It was frustrating not having any leads to offer. And money? Did anyone ask to borrow money and you refused? Any situation like that? Emily turned from the front seat to look at me. I thought carefully. Not recently. About 6 months ago, a former coworker asked to borrow $500. I lent it to her, and she already paid me back. Who? Ryan asked immediately. Vera, you know her. But it was not her, I am sure. She needed the money for her husband's surgery. She paid me back as soon as the insurance reimbursed them. Ryan did not seem convinced. Even so, I am going to give her name to the police. They need to investigate every angle. We arrived at their apartment, and I settled into the guest room. The kids still did not know what was happening. Ryan and Emily had decided not to tell them for now, so as not to scare them. To them, Grandma had just come to spend a few days. In the afternoon, 2 detectives came to interview me. A man and a woman, both with serious and professional expressions. I told everything from the beginning. The lonely birthday, the arrival of the chocolates without ID, my decision to share with the family, Ryan's desperate call. Did you not get a good look at the driver? The detective, who introduced herself as Detective Davis, was taking detailed notes. I saw him, but it was fast. He was wearing a uniform from a shipping company, a cap that covered part of his face. Male, white, average height. I did not notice anything else. And the box? Did it have any identification from the store where it was purchased? Detective Miller asked. No, none. Just the chocolates in a pretty box with gold paper. They asked dozens of questions about my routine, my relationships, my financial situation, my will. Every answer seemed to open up more questions. After 2 hours, they finally left, promising they would investigate thoroughly. The following days were a blur of anxiety and fear. The police were investigating, but they had no concrete leads. The shipping company that made the delivery said the order was placed online, paid in cash at the time of drop-off, at one of their branches. Security cameras at the branch showed a man wearing a face mask, sunglasses, and a cap, impossible to identify. The chocolates had been bought at a luxury shop in Manhattan, but also paid for in cash. The employee who served him did not remember anything specific about the buyer, only that it was a middle-aged man. With the masks that some people were still wearing, she did not see his face well. Whoever had done this had planned carefully not to leave traces. This scared me even more. It was not an impulsive act. It was premeditated, calculated. Someone had thought about every detail of how to kill me and get away with it. Ryan hired a private security guard to watch my house in the suburbs. He did not want anyone entering there or leaving anything suspicious. I could not go back yet, so my house sat empty, being watched by a stranger. Emily tried to distract me during the days. We watched movies, cooked together, played with the kids. But my mind always went back to the same question. Who? I went over every interaction of the last few months, every conversation, every look. I looked for signs I had missed, some clue hidden in some memory. One night, when the kids were already sleeping, Ryan called me to talk on the balcony of the apartment. He had a heavy expression, as if he were carrying something difficult. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." He was holding a beer, but he was not drinking, just turning the bottle between his fingers. "Of course, son. What is it? You? Are you completely sure there was no one after Dad? No relationship, no involvement, not even casual?" He avoided my gaze, clearly uncomfortable with the question. The question took me completely by surprise. "Ryan, of course not. Your father died 8 years ago, and I have not had an interest in anyone since then. Are you sure? Because the police are investigating that angle. Crimes of passion, rejected ex-boyfriends, things like that." He finally looked at me, and I saw he was not accusing me, just trying to help. "Son, I swear to you, there was no one, 0 relationships, 0 dates, nothing." It was almost embarrassing to admit how lonely my life had become, but it was the truth. He nodded, seeming relieved. "Okay, I believe you. It is just that the police have to investigate everything, you know?" I understand. And I understood, even if it was humiliating to have to prove that my life was so empty of romance. We stood in silence for a few moments, looking at the city lights. "Ryan, can I ask you something?" "Sure. You and Emily, you guys were drifting away from me before this happened. Why?" I had to ask, even afraid of the answer. Ryan sighed heavily. "Mom, we were not drifting away on purpose. It is just that. Life gets fast, you know? Work, kids, bills to pay. It is not about you. But the visits became rarer, the calls shorter. I felt it, Ryan." My voice came out more hurt than I intended. He looked down. "I know, and I am sorry. The truth is that Emily and I were going through some problems in our marriage. Nothing serious, but those arguments about money, about division of chores, we were stressed and kind of isolated ourselves from everyone, not just you." That information surprised me. I did not know they were having problems. "Is everything okay now?" "It is better. We did some couples therapy sessions. It helped a lot." He smiled slightly. "And then all this happened, and it kind of put things in perspective. Almost losing you, almost losing Emily and the kids because of those chocolates. It made us realize what really matters." I held his hand. "I am glad you guys are working things out, and I am sorry if I was being intrusive or demanding too much." "No, Mom, you never were. The fault is mine for pulling away." He squeezed my hand. "But now it will be different. I promise." A week after I had been living with them, the police finally had a lead. Detective Davis called me, asking me to come to the precinct. Ryan accompanied me, both of us anxious and nervous. We managed to trace the purchase of the arsenic. She started as soon as we sat in her office. It was bought online 3 weeks ago from a site that sells chemical products. The delivery address was a short-term rental apartment in the city. "And who rented the apartment?" Ryan leaned forward. "A man using fake documents. But we got security camera footage from the building." She turned the computer monitor toward us. What I saw left me breathless. It was a grainy image, but you could see clearly. A man of about 45, dark hair, wearing glasses, and I knew him. "It is Greg," I whispered, my voice barely coming out. "Who?" Ryan looked at me, confused. "Greg Miller. He was my sister's boyfriend." The words came out with difficulty. How could I have forgotten him? Ryan got even more confused. "Mom, you do not have a sister." "I did. Margaret. She died 12 years ago, of cancer. You were very young. Maybe you do not remember her much." My mind was racing, connecting dots that I had buried over a decade ago. Margaret was 5 years younger than me. We were close, but we had a serious falling out shortly before she got sick. The memories came back in painful waves, things I had tried to forget for years. Detective Davis was attentive, taking notes. What kind of falling out? I took a deep breath. It was hard to talk about this, especially in front of Ryan, but I had no choice. Margaret had been dating Greg for about 3 years. He seemed like a nice guy, worked in real estate. But then I found out he was stealing money, taking her credit card without permission, making purchases, things like that. And what happened? Ryan asked, completely focused now. I confronted him. I told Margaret what was happening. She did not believe me at first. She defended him. We fought hard. She said I was jealous, that I did not want to see her happy. The words came out with difficulty, each one bringing back the pain of that time. But eventually, she found out it was true. She broke up with him. Greg was furious. He blamed me for destroying the relationship. He called me a few times making threats, saying I was going to regret it. But then, Margaret got sick, and I forgot about all that. What kind of threats? The detective was totally focused now. Vague things. That I was going to pay for destroying his life. That he was not going to forget. That one day I would understand what it is to lose everything. I had taken the threats as anger of the moment. Words spoken in the heat of emotion. I never thought he would actually do anything. And after your sister passed away? Detective Davis asked. He showed up at the funeral. It was strange. Margaret had broken up with him almost a year before. He did not say anything, just stood at the back of the church. After that, I never saw him or heard from him again. But now I remembered his look that day. Cold, calculating, as if he were evaluating me. Ryan was pale. Mom, why did you never tell me about those threats? Because you were a kid. You were dealing with the death of your Aunt Margaret. I did not want to worry you with more things. And honestly, I thought he had forgotten and moved on. But now it all made sense. Greg had spent years waiting, planning, maybe blaming me for Margaret's death in some twisted way. Or simply holding a grudge for me, having exposed his lies. And now, more than a decade later, he had decided to get revenge. Can you arrest him? Ryan asked the detective. We are tracking where he is now. With these images and the link to the arsenic, we have enough for an arrest warrant. She made more notes. But I need you to tell me everything about Greg Miller. Where did he live? Where did he work? Anything you remember. I spent the next hour remembering everything I knew about Greg Miller. It was not much. He was about 40 at the time he dated Margaret, which meant he would be over 50 now. He worked at a real estate agency, but I did not remember which one. He had a black car, a sedan. He lived alone in a rented apartment. Does he have family? Siblings? Parents? The detective asked methodically. I do not know. Margaret never mentioned it. I think he was not close to his family. Every detail I managed to remember was noted, evaluated. When we finally left the precinct, Ryan was visibly shaken. How did I not know this? How did you hide that you had a sister and that a guy had threatened you? Ryan, I did not hide it. You were a child when Margaret died, and Greg's threats seemed just like empty words at the time. I felt guilty, even knowing I had done what I thought was right at the time. But Mom, if I had known, I could have been more vigilant. We could have avoided this. He was frustrated, looking for someone to blame. Son, no one could foresee that he would wait 12 years to act. That is sick. And it was. What kind of person holds a grudge for so long? What kind of mind plans a murder more than a decade later? In the following days, the police intensified the search for Greg. They discovered that he had legally changed his name 5 years ago. He was using the name Greg Smith now. He worked at a small real estate agency in upstate New York. He lived alone in a rented house. When they finally went to arrest him, he did not resist. Apparently, he was waiting. When the officers entered his house, they found a notebook full of notes about me, my routine, my house, places I frequented. He had followed me for months, maybe years, studying my habits. There were also printouts of emails and financial documents. He knew exactly how much money I had. He knew about my will. He knew Ryan was my only heir. And he had an elaborate plan not only to kill me, but to make it look natural. He confessed. Detective Davis called me 3 days after the arrest. He said you destroyed his life when you separated him from Margaret, that after she died, he had nothing left. He spent years planning how to make you pay. He said why he waited so long. I had to understand the sick mind behind this. He said he wanted you to live a good life first. He wanted you to have things to lose. And he wanted to make sure he would not get caught. He spent years studying poisons, how not to leave traces. He thought he had planned it perfectly. There was a tone of disgust in her voice. And if I had not given the chocolates to Emily and the kids? If I had eaten them? The question tormented me. According to him, you would have died in a few hours. The amount of arsenic was massive. They probably would have assumed it was a heart attack, considering your age. They would hardly do an autopsy on a 60-year-old woman with no history of health problems who died at home. She paused. You were very lucky, Susan. Lucky. What a strange word to describe almost being murdered. But I understood what she meant. Lucky to have decided to share the chocolates. Lucky that Ryan noticed something wrong. Lucky that the kids did not eat them. Very lucky indeed. Greg was formally charged with attempted first-degree murder. The district attorney said it was one of the most premeditated cases he had ever seen. There was evidence of years of planning, of obsession. Greg would face decades in prison. Finally, I was able to return to my house. Ryan did not want me to go. He wanted me to stay living with them. But I needed my house, my space. I could not let fear take that away from me. But I returned to a different house. I installed a complete security system, with cameras and an alarm. I changed all the locks. I no longer opened the door to delivery drivers without verifying who they were first. Every package that arrived was looked at with suspicion. Greg's trial took place 6 months later. I had to testify, tell the whole story again, in front of a courtroom full of people. I saw Greg sitting there, in a suit and handcuffed, looking at me with those cold eyes I remembered from Margaret's funeral. His lawyer tried to argue that he had mental issues, that Margaret's death had traumatized him. But the prosecution showed all the evidence, the meticulous planning, the years of surveillance, the careful purchase of materials. It was not madness. It was calculated revenge. Does Mr. Miller have anything to say before sentencing? The judge asked. He stood up slowly. His eyes met mine. You took away the only person I loved. I just wanted you to feel the same pain. His words were empty to me. I did not take Margaret away from you. You did that yourself when you stole from her, when you lied, when you chose your self-interest over her well-being. I spoke loudly, even though it was not my turn. The judge did not reprimand me. Greg did not reply. He just sat down, defeated. The sentence was 22 years in prison. He would be almost 75 when he got out, if he lived that long. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction with that. Another part just felt emptiness. I went back home after the trial and tried to resume my life. But nothing was like before. I had changed fundamentally. The naive woman who opened the door, smiling to delivery drivers, had died. In her place was someone more cautious, more suspicious. Ryan and Emily started visiting me every week. The kids came to spend weekends with me. It was like almost losing me had made everyone value the time we had more. And I was grateful for that, even if it had come from a tragedy. I started going to therapy. The therapist, Dr. Marshall, helped me process the trauma. It was not just about almost being murdered, but about the breach of fundamental trust. I had lived believing I was safe, that no one wanted to hurt me. Finding out otherwise had shaken my worldview. It is normal to have these feelings, Dr. Marshall told me in a session. You went through a traumatic event. It takes time to feel safe again. But I want to feel safe now, I replied, frustrated. I do not want to be afraid to open the door. I do not want to have to check every package that arrives. I do not want to live like this. And you will not live like this forever. But you need to give yourself time. 3 months is nothing after almost being murdered. She was always direct, which I appreciated. Slowly, very slowly, I began to heal. I went back to shopping without looking over my shoulder every minute. I started answering the doorbell without panic. I opened the door to the mailman without imagining he was bringing something that would kill me. But some changes were permanent. I never accepted anonymous gifts again. I never opened packages without questioning where they came from. And chocolates? Well, chocolates took on a completely different connotation. I could no longer eat them without remembering. A year after the incident, Ryan organized a party for my 61st birthday. It was at my house, with him, Emily, the kids, some close friends. It was small, intimate, exactly how I wanted. "Mom, I want to make a toast." Ryan stood up, holding a glass. "A year ago, we almost lost you in the most horrible way. But you survived. Not only did you survive, but you became stronger. You are the bravest woman I know." Everyone toasted. I smiled, eyes full of tears. It was true. I had survived, and I had become stronger. But I had also lost something. That innocence, that ability to trust fully. Thanks, son. And thank you everyone for being here. You are my true family. I looked around the room, at the people who really cared about me. After everyone left, and I was alone cleaning up the house, I found a card Emily had left discreetly. Inside it was written, "Susan, you taught us that strength is not never falling, but always getting back up. Thank you for being our example." I put the card away carefully. It was that kind of thing that made it all worth it. Not money, not material goods, but real connections with people who truly mattered. Greg was still in prison, and I knew he would stay there for a long time. Occasionally I found myself thinking about him, wondering if he felt remorse, if he understood that he had wasted years of his own life on empty hatred. But then I remembered his look in the courtroom, cold and unrepentant, and I knew the answer. I started doing volunteer work at a support center for victims of violent crimes. I wanted to use my experience to help other people who were going through the trauma I went through. I found that talking about what happened to me, helping others process their own traumas, was therapeutic. A woman named Rita was in the group. She had been assaulted by her ex-husband, who almost killed her. "How did you manage to trust people again?" she asked me in one of the sessions. "I am still learning," I answered honestly. "But I realized that I cannot let one bad person destroy my ability to see the good in others." Greg was sick, obsessive, but most people are not like that. Most are good. "But how do you know the difference?" Rita insisted. I thought carefully before answering. "I think we do not always know, but we cannot live in fear of everyone. We have to find a balance between being cautious and being open, between protecting our hearts and allowing them to feel." It was a lesson I myself was still learning. But being there, with that group of people who had gone through different horrors but shared the struggle to move forward, made me feel less alone. 2 years after the poisoned chocolates incident, my life had found a new normal. It was not the same as before. It never would be. But it was a good life, maybe even better in some ways. I valued the little things more. A call from Ryan, an afternoon with my grandkids, a beautiful sunset. Ryan and Emily had a third child, a girl they named Margaret, in honor of my sister. When they told me, I cried. It was a way to keep her memory alive, to transform something that had been tainted by Greg's tragedy into something beautiful again. "We want her to know who her Aunt Margaret was," Emily told me when she showed me little Margaret for the first time. The real one, not the twisted version Greg had in his head. I held my granddaughter in my arms and told stories about my sister, about how funny she was, generous, a dreamer, about how she loved art and always wanted to travel the world, about how close we were until that fight because of Greg. It was cathartic to talk about Margaret, to keep her memory alive in a healthy way. That same year, I received a letter. It was from Greg, from prison. My first reaction was to tear it up without reading. I wanted nothing from him, no apology, no justification. But something made me pause. I opened the letter with slightly trembling hands. The letter was short. It said he was in therapy in prison, working on his issues. It said he finally understood that what he did was monstrous, that he had wasted years in hatred. He apologized, not expecting forgiveness, just wanting me to know he had changed. I read the letter 3 times. I looked for sincerity in the words, but it was hard to distinguish. How many times do people do therapy in prison just to appear rehabilitated? How many actually change? I decided not to reply, not because I still held anger, but because I owed him nothing, not even acknowledgement of his letter. He had made his choices. Now he lived with the consequences. My forgiveness, or lack thereof, would change nothing for him. But I put the letter in a box where I kept all the mementos of that period. copies of the police report, newspaper articles about the case, Emily's card. It was my trauma box, a way to keep those memories contained, separate from the rest of my life. My work at the support center as a volunteer continued to grow. Now I was not just a participant, but a facilitator of support groups. I helped other victims of attempted murder process their traumas, to find the strength to move on. One day, a new woman arrived at the group. Her name was Claire. She was 52. Her own daughter had tried to poison her for the inheritance of her house. Her story touched me deeply. After the meeting, we talked privately. "It is different when it is someone from the family, right?" she said, with tears streaming down. "Everyone understands when it is a stranger, some random criminal, but when it is your own blood, I understand," I replied. In my case, it was not blood family, but it was someone who was connected to my sister, someone I had trusted in a way. "The betrayal is real, even if it is not a child or parent," Claire cried in my arms. "How did you live with it? How did you not go crazy?" "Some days I thought I was going crazy," I admitted. But I realized that my sanity was my victory. I could not let the person who tried to kill me also steal my peace. So I fought for it, day after day. Those conversations, as painful as they were, reminded me how much I had grown. 2 years ago, I would not have been able to give that kind of advice. I would be too lost in my own pain. But now I managed to see a bigger picture. Ryan and I became closer than ever. He called me every day, no matter how busy he was. He visited every week with the family. He had learned that tomorrow is not guaranteed, that we need to value people while we have them. "Mom, I am thinking of writing a book," he told me one day while we were drinking coffee in my kitchen. "About what?" I asked curiously. "About our experience, about almost losing you, about what we went through. I think it could help other families." He seemed hesitant, not knowing how I would react. I thought carefully. The idea of exposing our story more publicly scared me, but I also saw the value. If you write it, I want to help. I want it to be honest, but also to show that it is possible to overcome. We started working on the book together. Ryan wrote from his point of view, the desperate son trying to save his mother. I wrote from my point of view, the woman who was the target of a sick revenge. It was hard to revisit every detail, but also therapeutic. The book was published a year later, by a small independent publisher. We did not expect it to sell much. It was more of a personal project. But to our surprise, the story resonated with many people. We received letters from readers who had gone through similar experiences, who found strength in our story. One letter in particular marked me. It was from a woman named Sonia. "My brother tried to kill me for inheritance 5 years ago. I spent all that time feeling guilty somehow, as if I had done something to deserve it. Your book showed me that the guilt is not mine. Thank you for sharing your pain to ease others." Those words made it all worth it. The exposure, the discomfort, the need to relive every painful moment. If our story could help one person feel less alone, less guilty, it was worth every word. On my 63rd birthday, I threw a bigger party. I invited friends, family, people from the support center. I wanted to celebrate not just another year of life, but 3 years of having overcome something that could have destroyed me. I made a toast myself this time, holding a glass, to survival. Not just physical, but emotional. To the strength we do not know we have until we need it. And to the people who hold us up when we cannot stand alone. Everyone toasted. The sound of glasses clinking through the room. I looked around and saw Ryan with Emily and the 3 grandkids. I saw my friends from the support center. I saw neighbors who had become close friends. I saw Dr. Marshall, my therapist, who had come as a guest and friend, not as a professional. That was my family. Not all by blood, but all by choice. People who had been with me in the darkest moments and were still here in the moments of light. At night, when everyone left and I was alone, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea. I looked at the stars and thought about everything that had happened. 3 years ago, someone had tried to end my life prematurely, but he failed. And from that failure, I had built something stronger than what I had before. I was not the same Susan from 3 years ago. That woman had died the moment she found out about the arsenic, but in her place was born someone wiser, stronger, more aware of the fragility and value of life. Today, 5 years after that birthday that changed everything, I can say that I finally found peace. Greg is still in prison, serving his sentence. I heard he became a model prisoner, helps in rehabilitation programs for other inmates. Part of me hopes it is genuine, that he really has changed. But even if he has, it does not change what he did. Trauma never disappears completely. There are still moments when I receive a package and feel that knot in my chest. There are still nights when I wake up from nightmares where I am eating those chocolates and feeling the poison burn inside. But those moments became rarer, further apart. Therapy taught me that healing does not mean forgetting. It means learning to carry the scars without letting them define who you are. I have scars, deep and permanent. But I also have strength, resilience, wisdom, that only comes from having faced the worst and survived. The book Ryan and I wrote had a second edition. A larger publisher became interested and decided to re-release it with wider distribution. We started receiving invitations for speaking engagements, to tell our story at events about security, mental health, trauma recovery. At first I hesitated. Exposing myself that way, speaking publicly about the worst moment of my life, seemed terrifying. But when I accepted the first invitation and saw the audience's reaction, I understood the power of vulnerability. After the talk, a line of people came to thank me, to share their own stories, to say they felt less alone. My grandkids grew up. Liam is now 13, Chloe 10, and little Margaret 5. They know what happened, in a version appropriate for their ages. They know Grandma went through something scary, but that she is okay now. And they know that is why we always check where gifts come from. That is why we are careful with our safety. Grandma, were you scared? Chloe asked me one day, with that innocent curiosity of children. Yes, sweetie, I was very scared. But do you know what I learned? Being scared is normal. The important thing is not to let fear paralyze us. It is feeling the fear and doing what needs to be done anyway. She nodded, processing the answer seriously. Ryan flourished as a father. The marriage problems he mentioned years ago had been completely resolved. He and Emily were a solid team, raising their children with love and healthy boundaries. And he never let work take over his life completely again. He learned to balance, to prioritize what really mattered. As for me, I discovered hobbies I never imagined having. I started taking painting classes. I discovered I had a certain talent for watercolors. I started traveling more, visiting places I always wanted to see, but never had the courage. I took a trip to Europe with a group of friends from the support center. It was liberating to explore the world without fear. I also started dating someone again, something I never thought I would do after Robert. His name is Arthur. He is a widower, 68 years old. We met at a talk I gave about overcoming trauma. He had lost his wife in a car accident and was trying to rebuild his life. It was not love at first sight. It was something more gradual, more conscious. Two survivors finding comfort in each other. He understands my moments of anxiety, my triggers. I understand his pain of loss. Together we built something new, without haste, without pressure. Ryan approved of Arthur, which was important to me. Mom, you deserve to be happy, and he seems to make you happy. It was his blessing, simple but sincere. The support center, where I work as a volunteer, grew significantly. We now have our own headquarters, several support groups, a counseling program. We help hundreds of people a year process their traumas and find the strength to move on. My story became one of those used in the center's educational materials. The Lady with the Poisoned Chocolates, as some call it. I do not like the sensationalist title, but I understand it draws attention to important issues. Vigilance, signs of obsessive behavior, the importance of reporting threats. I made peace with Margaret's memory. For years, I carried guilt over the fight we had, wondering if I could have handled Greg's situation differently, but therapy helped me understand that I did the best I could with the information I had. Exposing the truth about Greg was protecting Margaret, even if she had not seen it that way at the time. I visit her grave regularly now, something I had stopped doing after she died. I bring flowers, tell her about my life, about how I transformed the tragedy her old boyfriend tried to create into something positive. I feel she would be proud, My house in the suburbs is still my refuge, but now it is also a place of joy. Weekends are full of grandchildren's laughter, conversations with friends, dinners with Arthur. The walls that witnessed my fear now witness my recovery. The security system remains, the cameras continue active. Not out of paranoia, but out of healthy caution. I learned that being cautious is not the same as living in fear. It is simply being smart, learning from experience. When I look back at that 60-year-old Susan who opened the door to receive poisoned chocolates, I feel a mix of compassion and admiration. Compassion for the innocence she was about to lose. Admiration for the strength she would discover she had. If I could talk to that Susan, what would I tell her? I would tell her she is going to go through the most terrifying thing of her life. That she is going to question everything. That she is going to feel fragile and lost. But I would also tell her that she is going to survive. More than that, she is going to thrive. She is going to find a strength she did not know she had. She is going to build a richer, more intentional, more connected life. The attempted murder could have been my end. Greg planned for it to be. But it became my beginning. The beginning of a life lived with more awareness, more gratitude, more purpose. I do not give thanks for what happened. I never will. But I give thanks for who I became in response to what happened. I give thanks for the people I gained, for the lessons I learned, for the perspective I developed. Today, at 65, I can say I am genuinely happy, not in spite of what I went through, but partly because of it. Trauma broke me, but I rebuilt myself in a truer, more authentic way. And if there is a message I want to leave for anyone going through something similar, it is this: you will survive. It will seem impossible sometimes. There will be days when you will want to give up, but do not give up. On the other side of that dark valley, there is light, there is life, there is joy. Greg tried to poison me with arsenic disguised as a gift, but I transformed that poison into medicine, into strength, into wisdom, into compassion for others who suffer. And that is my greatest victory. Life goes on. And now, finally, I am not just surviving, I am living. Now, if you liked this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments which part left you with your jaw on the floor. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos I don't upload here. I'll see you there.